January 1945. Chef Forward Headquarters, Reims, France. General Dwight D. Eisenhower sits at his desk, studying maps of the Rhine River crossings. The final push into Germany is being planned. The end of the war in Europe depends on getting this right. Behind him, winter rain streaks down the windows of the converted schoolhouse that serves as Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force. He's marking potential crossing points when his Chief of Staff, General Walter Bedell Smith, enters without knocking. Smith's face tells Eisenhower something is very wrong. Eisenhower looks up. Smith closes the door behind him. "Sir, Bradley requested an immediate meeting. No appointment, no notice." Eisenhower frowns. Omar Bradley doesn't operate like that. Bradley is methodical, proper, follows protocol to the letter. "When?" "Now, sir. He's outside." "Well, send him in." Smith hesitates. "Sir." Patton came with him. Eisenhower sets down his pen. Bradley and Patton, together, without warning. The two men rarely coordinate directly. Bradley commands 12th Army Group. Patton commands 3rd Army under Bradley. They respect each other, but they don't show up together at Supreme Headquarters unannounced. Both of them? Yes, sir. And General Bradley specifically said this concerns their continued service. Eisenhower's stomach drops. Continued service. That's not language generals use lightly. He looks at the command structure chart on his wall. At the top, his name. Below, Montgomery commanding 21st Army Group and temporarily commanding U.S. 1st and 9th Armies. Bradley commanding 12th Army Group, which now consists of only Patton's 3rd Army. It was supposed to be temporary. During the Battle of the Bulge 6 weeks ago, German forces split the American front. To stabilize the northern sector, Eisenhower placed 1st and 9th Armies under Montgomery's operational control. It made sense at the time. Montgomery's 21st Army Group was positioned on the northern flank. Bradley's headquarters had been cut off from direct contact with those armies. It was the logical military decision. But that was 6 weeks ago. The bulge has been contained. The front has stabilized. And on January 11th, 7 days ago, Eisenhower made the arrangement permanent. 1st and 9th Armies would remain under Montgomery for the Rhine crossing operations. Eisenhower stands. Send them in. Before we continue, if you're interested in untold stories from World War II, stories that reveal the impossible decisions and conflicts behind the scenes, do me a favor and subscribe to Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me which World War II commander you want to hear about next. Now, let's get back to January 1945, when two of America's best generals walked into Eisenhower's office and threatened to resign. The door opens. Bradley enters first. He's in his standard uniform, perfectly pressed, his expression neutral, but his jaw set. Behind him, Patton. Normally, Patton enters a room like he owns it. Today, he's controlled, restrained. That scares Eisenhower more than anything. "Omar, George, sit down." "We'll stand, sir," Bradley says. Eisenhower nods slowly. This is worse than he thought. "Bedell said something about your continued service." Bradley doesn't waste time. "Ike, I cannot continue as Army Group Commander if I'm commanding fewer American troops than a British general. It's untenable." There it is. Direct. Clear. Omar Bradley, who never complains, who always finds a way to make things work, has just drawn a line. Eisenhower chooses his words carefully. The command arrangement was necessary during the bulge. Montgomery was positioned to... Was necessary, Patton interrupts. Past tense. The bulge ended weeks ago. Montgomery still has 2 American armies. Brad has 1? Mine. Eisenhower's voice hardens. "George, I'm aware of the command structure. Are you aware Montgomery held a press conference last week? Told the world he saved the Americans at the bulge? That British troops had to rescue us?" Patton pulls a folded newspaper from his jacket. Stars and stripes. The headline reads, "Montgomery claims credit for bulge victory." My men are reading this, Ike. They're reading that they needed saving. 3rd Army wheeled 90 degrees north in 48 hours. We broke through to Bastogne. We shattered 6 German divisions. And Montgomery's telling reporters we were a bit shaken and needed steady British leadership. Bradley speaks again, his voice level but firm. "When you made the arrangement permanent on January 11th, something changed. Montgomery commands 1st Army under Hodges. He commands 9th Army under Simpson. That's roughly 500,000 American troops. I command 3rd Army under Patton. That's roughly 250,000 troops. I am an Army Group Commander with 1 army. A British Field Marshal commands more Americans than I do." Eisenhower sits down heavily. He knew this was coming. He'd hoped it wouldn't. The strategic situation requires you to decide whether Americans command American troops, Bradley says. Each word is measured, deliberate. "Ike, I'm asking you as a friend and telling you as a subordinate. If Montgomery retains command of American armies, you'll need a new 12th Army Group. I mean that. The room goes silent. Eisenhower stares at Bradley. Omar Bradley, who has never given him a moment's trouble, who executed every operation assigned to him, who commanded the largest amphibious assault in history at Normandy, who broke out at Saint-Lô, who liberated Paris, that Bradley just threatened to resign. And you? Eisenhower looks at Patton. Patton meets his eyes. I'm not staying if Brad goes. Sir. Eisenhower stands, walks to the window. Outside, staff cars come and go in the rain. Hundreds of officers working to coordinate the largest military alliance in history. British, American, Canadian, French, Polish, all pointed at Germany. All depended on this alliance holding together. He turns back. You're asking me to choose between my best American generals and alliance unity with Britain. No, sir, Bradley says quietly. We're asking you to choose whether Americans command American troops. Eisenhower's voice is ice. Get out, both of you. I need to think. They turn to leave. Neither salutes. That tells Eisenhower everything. These men are serious. They'll resign. And if they resign, he loses the war. The door closes behind them. According to Bradley's memoir, published in 1951, he would later write, "If I lost my command to Montgomery, I would have to ask to be sent home." And Patton's diary from January 1945 records, "Bradley and I are going to resign if this keeps up." Within an hour, word begins spreading through American headquarters. It's not official, no announcements are made. But in an organization of thousands, secrets don't keep. Staff officers start making quiet inquiries. What happens if Bradley leaves? Who takes 12th Army Group? Would Patton really go with them? At 12th Army Group headquarters in Luxembourg, the mood is tense. Bradley's chief of staff fields questions from subordinate commanders. Is it true? Is the old man leaving? Nobody has answers. At 3rd Army headquarters in Luxembourg, Patton's staff is more vocal. They draft letters, formal protests. Most are never sent, but the anger is real. Junior officers who led men through the Bulge are reading Montgomery's claims in British newspapers. The narrative being built is that Americans panicked and British steady leadership saved the day. That's not how 3rd Army remembers it. They remember getting orders on December 19th to wheel north. 90 degrees. In winter, every division, every tank, every supply truck, 90 degrees north to relieve Bastogne. And they did it. In 48 hours, 3rd Army executed one of the most complex maneuvers in military history. While Montgomery was regrouping in the north, Patton's forces were already attacking. But now, Montgomery commands those forces. 1st Army, 9th Army, 500,000 American troops under a British field marshal who's taking credit for their victories. Eisenhower sits alone in his office. On his desk is the command chart. He traces the lines with his finger. Montgomery, Bradley, Patton, Churchill, Roosevelt, Marshall. This isn't just a military problem, it's a political problem, an alliance problem. At 3 a.m, he places a secure telephone call to Washington. General George C. 17. Marshall, Chief of Staff of the United States Army, is woken at home. Ike, General, I have a situation. Eisenhower explains. Bradley and Patton, the resignation threat, the command structure, Montgomery's press conference. Marshall listens without interrupting. When Eisenhower finishes, there's a long silence on the line. Ike, you cannot lose Bradley. I know. And you certainly cannot lose Patton. Despite his issues, that man wins battles. I know that too, sir. Another pause. But Churchill will lose his mind if you remove Montgomery now. After that press coverage, Montgomery's a national hero in Britain. The man who saved the Americans. That's the story the British public believes. So what do? Marshall's voice is flat. You fix it. I don't care how. The line goes dead. Eisenhower puts down the phone. He has maybe 48 hours. After that, Bradley will formalize his resignation. Once it's in writing, it becomes official. Then it goes up the chain. Marshall will have to brief the president. The British will find out. Churchill will demand explanations. The alliance will fracture. And the Germans are watching. German intelligence monitors Allied communications. They intercept radio traffic. They read newspapers. If they learn that the Allied command structure is collapsing, if they think the British-American alliance is breaking apart, they'll exploit it. They'll concentrate forces. They'll counterattack. They'll prolong the war. Eisenhower cannot let that happen. But then Montgomery makes everything worse. January 10th, 5 days before Patton and Bradley show up at Reims, Montgomery holds another press conference. Without clearing it with Chef, without checking with Eisenhower. He speaks to British and American reporters about the Battle of the Bulge. about how his 21st Army Group provided the steady leadership needed when American forces were disrupted, about how his experience and decisiveness turned the tide. American newspapers pick it up immediately. The New York Times runs the story, the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune. Back home, Americans read that their forces needed British rescue, that Montgomery saved the day. The story spreads. At 3rd Army headquarters, staff officers are furious. They draft a formal protest letter. It's addressed to Eisenhower. It details 3rd Army's movements during the Bulge, the 90-degree turn, the relief of Bastogne, the destruction of German armored divisions. It concludes by stating that 3rd Army requests recognition for its actual achievements and objects to false British claims. Bradley stops the letter from being sent. Barely. But he can't stop the anger. And he shares it. Back at Chef, Eisenhower receives a report from his intelligence chief. American unit commanders are quietly discussing non-cooperation with Montgomery's headquarters. Nothing formal, nothing insubordinate. But liaison officers are being ignored. Requests for coordination are being delayed. The command structure is breaking down from the bottom up. Eisenhower convenes an emergency meeting with Air Chief Marshal Arthur Tedder, his British deputy. Tedder is a reasonable man, not given to Montgomery's grandiosity. They meet privately. Arthur, I need your honest assessment. Tedder sighs. Monty's impossible, Ike. You know it. I know it. Half the British High Command knows it. But he's Churchill's favorite. The Prime Minister adores him. Thinks he's the new Wellington. If you sack Montgomery now, after all this press coverage, Churchill will see it as a betrayal. He might demand your removal. Eisenhower stares at him. My removal? You're supreme commander by political agreement. Churchill and Roosevelt both have to support you. If Churchill withdraws that support, Tedder doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. Eisenhower could lose his own command. Over this. Over a subordinate's ego and 2 American generals who are right but inconvenient. On January 15th, Patton sends Eisenhower a personal letter, not through official channels, not through Bradley, directly to Eisenhower. It's marked private. I am under the impression that it is the considered opinion of most of your subordinate American generals that the Prime Minister and Mr. Churchill have sold you down the river. If this is true, we should take immediate steps to prevent our being tarred with the same brush. Eisenhower reads it 3 times. Patton is accusing the Prime Minister of political manipulation. He's suggesting that Eisenhower has been betrayed by the British government. He's calling for action. The letter is inflammatory. It's borderline insubordinate. It's also completely correct. By this point, Churchill has sent his own message to Eisenhower. A cable marked personal and confidential. My dear Ike, Montgomery is a hero to the British people. His removal would be seen as American ingratitude for British sacrifices. I trust you understand the political necessities of our alliance. It's polite. It's diplomatic. It's also a threat. Remove Montgomery and face political consequences. Meanwhile, Marshall sends another message from Washington. This one is brief. Fix this. Eisenhower is trapped. Keep Montgomery, lose Bradley and Patton, lose the war. Remove Montgomery, anger Churchill, lose his command, still lose the war. There's no good option. Or is there? January 16th. Eisenhower sits in his office, alone. He's been thinking for hours, running through every scenario, every option, every possible outcome. The problem is that everyone's locked into their positions. Bradley and Patton have drawn their line. Montgomery believes he's vindicated by press coverage. Churchill has political considerations. Marshall has strategic priorities. Everyone's correct from their own perspective. Everyone's impossible to satisfy simultaneously, unless Eisenhower changes the equation. He calls in Bedell Smith. Get me separate meeting times. Montgomery first thing tomorrow morning. Bradley and Patton tomorrow afternoon. Do not tell them about each other's meetings. Smith nods. He's been Eisenhower's chief of staff long enough to know when the boss has a plan. And Bedell? No record of these meetings. No stenographers. No notes. Just me and them. Yes, sir. That night, Eisenhower doesn't sleep. He rehearses what he's going to say. He knows he has one chance. If this doesn't work, the alliance collapses. January 18th, 1945. 0800 hours. Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery arrives at Chef headquarters. He's in full dress uniform, his beret perfectly positioned, his bearing confident. Montgomery believes this meeting is routine coordination. He has no idea what's coming. Eisenhower's office. The door closes. Just the 2 of them. Eisenhower doesn't sit. Monty, effective immediately, 1st and 9th Armies return to Bradley's command. Montgomery freezes. I beg your pardon? 1st Army, 9th Army, back to Bradley. Operational control transfers at 0600 tomorrow. Montgomery's voice rises. But Ike, the northern thrust across the Rhine requires unified command. I've been planning this for weeks. The Americans aren't prepared to... Eisenhower's voice cuts through like a blade. The Americans aren't what, Monty? Montgomery stops. He realizes he's made a mistake. A bad one. Eisenhower steps closer. The Americans aren't what? The Americans who broke through at Saint-Lô? Who took Paris? Who held Bastogne while you were regrouping? Choose your next words very carefully. Montgomery's face flushes. He's been rebuked. Publicly humiliated in private. Of course, Supreme Commander. I meant no disrespect. The Americans have fought magnificently. I merely meant that unified command in the North will continue. Under Bradley. You retain 21st Army Group, but no more American armies. And Monty? Eisenhower's voice drops to barely above a whisper. No more press conferences. Ever. Without my explicit written approval. If you speak to reporters again without my authorization, I will relieve you of command and send you home. Am I clear? Montgomery stiffens to attention. Yes, Supreme Commander. Good, you're dismissed. Montgomery leaves. He's shaken. In 5 minutes, Eisenhower has stripped away half his command and muzzled him permanently. The man who thought he was untouchable just learned otherwise. That afternoon, Bradley and Patton return to Chef. They're escorted to Eisenhower's office. Both expect bad news. They've spent 2 days preparing for the end of their careers. The door closes. Eisenhower is standing at his window, hands behind his back. Omar, George, sit down. They sit. Eisenhower doesn't turn around immediately. Let them wait. Let them think about what they've done. Then he turns. 1st and 9th Armies return to your command, Omar. Effective 0600 tomorrow. Bradley's eyes widen. Patton actually grins. Hot damn, Ike. Eisenhower's expression doesn't change. George, shut up. Patton's grin vanishes. Eisenhower sits behind his desk. He looks at both of them. Omar, you get your armies back. Montgomery retains 21st Army Group. You'll coordinate as equals under my authority for the Rhine crossings, but you both need to understand something. Sir. Bradley's voice is cautious. This is it. The moment that makes or breaks everything. Eisenhower leans forward. You both came in here 2 days ago ready to resign. You put me in an impossible position. You forced me to choose between my best commanders and alliance politics. Both generals look down. They expect the reprimand now. The anger. The consequences. Instead, Eisenhower says, and you were right to do it. Their heads snap up. Did he just say what they think he said? Eisenhower continues. You were right because if I'd let this stand, if I'd let Americans fight under foreign command indefinitely, while their own commanders sat idle, I would have destroyed morale. I would have betrayed every principle we fight for. You forced me to face something I was avoiding for political reasons. Bradley starts to speak. Ike, we didn't mean to put you in. Yes, you did. And I'm telling you now, you were right. I made a decision during the bulge that made sense tactically. Then I made it permanent for political reasons, to avoid upsetting Churchill, to maintain alliance unity. But in doing that, I was sacrificing something more important than politics. I was sacrificing the trust and respect of the men who actually fight this war. The room is completely silent. When you walked in here threatening to resign, you were telling me that some principles matter more than convenience, that command integrity matters. That respect for your troops matters, that American soldiers deserve to be led by American commanders. Not because British commanders are inferior, but because that's what our men signed up for. That's the contract, and I was breaking it. Patton looks like he's been hit with a brick. Bradley's eyes are glistening. Eisenhower's voice hardens. But don't ever put me in this position again. Next time, you come to me before you coordinate resignation threats. You tell me the problem, you give me time to fix it. You don't ambush me with ultimatums. Understood? Yes, sir, Patton says immediately. Understood, sir, Bradley echoes. Good. Now get out of here and go win this war. And Brad, call Monty today. Coordinate your Rhine crossing plans. Professionally and respectfully. He's still our ally. He's still a field marshal. You'll work with him as an equal. Can you do that? Bradley nods. Yes, sir. Then we're done, dismissed. They stand. This time, they salute. Eisenhower returns it. They leave. Alone again, Eisenhower sits down heavily. He just performed the most delicate operation of the entire war. He appeased both sides while appearing to side with neither. He gave Bradley and Patton what they demanded, but framed it as a principled decision, not a capitulation. He stripped Montgomery's command, but left him in charge of his own army group. He satisfied Churchill's political requirements. Montgomery remains a field commander while addressing American concerns. Most importantly, he admitted his subordinates were right. He validated their judgment. He told them that their principles mattered more than his political convenience. In doing that, he guaranteed their loyalty forever. According to Eisenhower's diary, later that evening he wrote, Today I learned that sometimes the hardest part of command is admitting when your subordinates see more clearly than you do. January 20th, 1945. 2 days later, 1st and 9th U.S. Armies officially returned to Bradley's 12th Army Group. The command structure is reorganized. Montgomery retains 21st Army Group. Bradley commands 12th Army Group with 3 armies, 1st, 3rd, and 9th. They're equals now. Both Army Group commanders, both reporting directly to Eisenhower. Montgomery never commands American troops again. The Rhine crossing proceeds as planned. In March 1945, all Allied armies cross the Rhine successfully. Bradley's forces cross at Remagen when 9th Armored Division captures the Ludendorff Bridge intact. Patton's forces cross at Oppenheim. Montgomery's forces cross in the north with a massive airborne operation. All 3 succeed. By April, Allied armies are racing across Germany. 3rd Army advances further and faster than any army in World War II. Bradley's 12th Army Group grows to 1.3 million men, the largest American field command in history. In May, 3rd Army meets Soviet forces at the Elbe River. Montgomery is 50 miles away. The Americans won the race. And the command structure that got them there, the one where Bradley commanded American troops, was the structure Bradley and Patton threatened to resign over. Neither Bradley nor Patton ever threatened resignation again. They didn't have to. Eisenhower had learned the lesson. When your best commanders tell you something's wrong, you listen. Even when it's politically inconvenient. Even when it risks the alliance. Because without their trust, without their respect, you have nothing. Eisenhower later wrote in his memoir, Crusade in Europe, published in 1948, "The problem of British-American command relationships was the most difficult administrative problem I faced during the war. In January 1945, it nearly broke us. My 2 finest American commanders made clear they could not continue under the existing arrangement. They were right. 3 sentences. That's all he wrote about it. But those 3 sentences tell you everything. They were right, not they had valid concerns, or they raised important questions. They were right. Full stop." Montgomery's press conference on January 7, 1945, the one that triggered this crisis, was so damaging that Churchill personally ordered the British press to stop covering it. But the damage was done. The narrative had spread. Americans were furious. British were defensive. The alliance was fraying. It took 2 generals threatening to resign to force the issue. It took Eisenhower's willingness to admit error to fix it. It took political courage to defy Churchill and strip Montgomery of American armies. But it worked. The alliance held. The war continued. And 4 months later, Germany surrendered. There's a broader lesson here. About leadership, about loyalty, about the difference between authority and respect. Eisenhower had absolute authority, supreme commander. He could have denied Bradley and Patton's demands. He could have forced them to comply or carry out their resignations. He had the power. But he didn't have their respect, not on this. They were telling him, in the clearest possible terms, that his decision was wrong, that it betrayed principles, that it undermined morale, and they were willing to sacrifice their careers to make that point. Eisenhower could have ignored them. He would have lost the war. Not because Bradley and Patton were irreplaceable, no one is truly irreplaceable, but because their resignations would have signaled to every American commander that political considerations mattered more than military judgment, that alliance politics trumped command integrity, that American generals didn't respect their supreme commander's decisions. That signal would have destroyed the Army's effectiveness. Not immediately, not obviously, but gradually. Commanders would have stopped speaking up, they would have stopped raising concerns. They would have complied with orders they thought were wrong, because speaking up had consequences. The Army would have become political instead of professional. Eisenhower understood that. So he did something remarkable. He admitted error. He changed course. He validated his subordinates' judgment, and in doing so, he earned their loyalty completely. 4 months after this confrontation, Bradley and Patton's armies stood on the Elbe River. They'd advanced hundreds of miles. They'd liberated concentration camps. They'd destroyed the Wehrmacht. They'd won the European War. And they did it under the command structure they'd demanded. The one where Americans commanded American troops. Montgomery was 50 miles away, still commanding 21st Army Group, still a field marshal, still Britain's hero, but commanding only British troops now. The Americans were under American command. Where they belonged. That's what Bradley and Patton fought for in January 1945. That's what Eisenhower ultimately gave them. That's why they never threatened resignation again. Because they didn't have to. Because Eisenhower had proven he would listen. Even when it was hard. Even when it risked everything. Before we go, remember to subscribe to WW2 Warmind for more untold stories from the Second World War. Hit that like button and comment below telling me which general or battle you want covered next. There are thousands of these stories. Moments of impossible decisions, conflicts behind the scenes, choices that changed history. This was just one of them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.